Okay, you want to get your teams big? I'll start recording. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, you're on.
And I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay, so this screen is what they're gonna see, so let's get out of there. Cool. Did you go live? I did.
I'm getting ready to speak. You ready? Good morning and welcome to the first developer breakout session. I am Melissa Kutcher. I am the Executive Director for Technology First. I'd like to extend a very warm and special welcome to each one of you here with us today for our 14th annual Taste of IT. Please join me in thanking our sponsors, Cincinnati State, Cadre Checkpoint, OKTA, and the bronze sponsors, as you would have seen on our PowerPoint. To our annual partners, we also thank you, ATC, Affidance, CareSource, Cincinnati Bell, Google, Round Tower, UD, Wright State University, and Uptime. We couldn't do this without your support. Thank you. So now let's get started. Will is responsible for the robotic process automation business at Round Tower, including strategy, marketing, delivery, operations, and P&L. He manages the team responsible for identifying automation opportunities within client organizations, building out end-to-end automation plans, and developing software solutions to act on automation plans. Will is a graduate of Cornell University and Boston College. Please join me in welcoming Will Fothergill, Round Tower, as he discusses robotic process automation, creating a center of excellence around RPA for your business. You ready to go, Will?
I am. Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. Let me pull up my presentation and I'll go ahead and get started right away. So, like Melissa said, excited to be here. My name is Will Fothergill. I'm a senior consultant within the advisory practice. And what I want to cover today, all related to an RPA COE, is cover 4 sections. First, explain why employee productivity should be the focus of your COE, show a financial model used to evaluate automation opportunities, address a handful of key organizational questions that you should plan for when setting up a COE, and if we have time, share a use case likely relevant in each of your organizations that you can go and build RPA bots to support. So the first section, I want to talk about productivity very quickly. So organizations invest in automation projects and teams for a variety of reasons, right? The motivations for making automation investments is traditionally to reduce costs, improve process speed, reduce errors, or make some combination of these, right? However, the most strategic automation offices are tasked with a simpler and much more impactful objective of driving employee productivity gains. And so to understand why productivity should be the objective of your RPA COE, I wanted to quickly remind you of what drives a firm's output and subsequently revenue. And so output or revenue is the multiplication problem that you see on the screen here. It's the product of average productivity per hour worked, average length of work week, and the average number of employees all during a given time period. Increasing output and revenue is theoretically simple. You can increase any of the factors on the screen here. You can increase employee productivity, have employees work more hours, or hire more employees. But to answer the highlighted question at the bottom, what makes productivity unique among these factors? Why should it be the focus of our RPA COE? It comes down to the cost structure. The cost structure of improving productivity is what makes productivity stand out as the most desirable factor to impact. If you look at each of these individually, a 20% increase in hours worked is likely to cost 20% more than baseline. Same with the number of employees. 10 to 20% more employees will lead to a roughly 10 to 20% increase in cost. But productivity gains are different, right? A 20% increase in productivity has no linear relationship to cost increases. It could cost 1%, 5%, 10%, 50%. Productivity gains result from the extent to which your organization efficiently adopts new technology. And so productivity is a firm's key to profitable growth, and that's why we think it should be also the focus of your RPA COE. And so to position RPA as a strategically imperative tool in technology, RPA is a productivity tool above all else. Employees shouldn't see automation or robots as a reason to fear for their jobs. Automation is much more impactful when it is used to augment existing roles and enable employees to increase their work capacity. Similarly, executives shouldn't see RPA bots as a cost savings tool. This is a narrow-minded view and leads to missed opportunities for automation. So I say this because it's the responsibility of the RPA COE to position automation as a way to drive up productivity, increase the firm's output, and ultimately improve revenue capacity. If you can do this, you'll drive employee engagement in automation initiatives much more than if RPA is viewed by the organization as a cost savings tool. And so that is the lens with which we believe a RPA COE should go about evangelizing automation within their organization. In the second section of the 4 sections that we have, I wanted to show you our recommended model for evaluating RPA opportunities. And so before we get into that, I'm sure everything on the screen here is familiar to most all of you, but this slide shows a sampling of tasks that an RPA bot can complete competently with minimal programming instruction. RPA bots can complete many of the same tasks as human employees, right? And that is a trap that many organizations fall into. As organizations look for target processes to automate, they build out automation lists and pipelines of activities that can be automated. And there's a lot of hype around RPA and automation, I think exactly for this reason. People see opportunities for automation all over the place. But really, the takeaway from this slide is not to automate everything you see here. Right? We don't want organizations asking the question, can I automate this? If you're asking, can I automate this? You're going to get a whole lot of yeses. That's not always the most strategic way to go about. We want to be asking, should I automate this? And so, as everyone knows, before you get into development, there's a whole lot of upfront work where the business analyst is a critical team member of your RPA COE to go about driving and evaluating automation opportunities. And so with that backdrop, we believe a financially focused approach is the best way to automation opportunity identification and sustain success with automation. And so what you see on the slide here is an overview of an RPA ROI model and decision-making framework that should be used for RPA investments. And at the top of the slide, there are the 2 major decision-making criteria. First, you have the automation improvement potential. This is the total benefit to the organization. And second, in red, you have the effort required to automate. This is the total cost to your organization. You net these 2 together and you get your return on investment from automation, right? What you see on the screen there as your net benefit from RPA. And so this should look familiar to all of you as an ROI model, just with the benefits shown before the investment that needs to be made. The bottom half of the slide is the same concept, just with a slightly more detailed view of these criteria. And so in blue, again, on the left here, you have the automation improvement potential, and it should encompass all of these benefits realized from automation. It includes the easily measurable and quantifiable benefits, the direct cost savings, the dark blue, right? What we mentioned at the beginning of that shouldn't be the only focus of your automation group or your RPA COE. It should also include all of the indirect benefits to adopting automation, the light blue that are much harder to quantify, but still very relevant, like the value of error reduction, improved process velocity or processing time, and having a scalable process that can easily grow and shrink with volume fluctuations, right? Quantifying those is extremely important. And if you sum together the dark blue and the light blue, you get your total automation improvement potential, right? The tall consolidated box here. That's your total benefit to the organization. And then in red here, you have the effort required to automation. And that should include these three components every time at a minimum, right? Your development costs, your licensing costs, and your monitoring management costs. And so this overall framework is the framework that we recommend for evaluating automation investments and initiatives within your RPA COE. And so before we move on to the next section, I did want to I have a couple highlights on some of these components that I wanted to go through quickly. So still on the RPA ROI model to be used by your RPA Center of Excellence. But first and foremost, right, everyone wants to know with any RPA implementation, any automation project, what is the cost savings going to be? What is the direct cost savings reduction in manual labor that results from mundane and repetitive clerical work done by employees now performed by a robot? And so this reduction in manual labor can be measured in two ways, and you have to be careful as you're measuring each of these, right? So you can take a task-centric manner in focusing on how long it takes a task to be performed and extrapolating savings from that number, right? I have a task that takes a minute to do. I do it 4,000 times a day. I'm going to save 4,000 minutes. That's the task savings, task-centric approach. The other approach is the employee-centric manner in focusing on how many people perform the task to be automated and making assumptions about redeploying resources to other roles. Both of these methodologies, a task-centric estimation or an employee-centric estimation, can overestimate or underestimate the potential savings depending on the specific process. So I pointed out here just as a note to keep in mind. So continuing to just move through this chart on the slide, right? We mentioned the indirect cost savings. And so an organization will see additional benefits from automation beyond simply the reduction in labor, right? This is where you see your productivity gains. And so these are the four most common areas where organizations should expect to see additional benefits from automation. And so calculating and estimating an annual cost savings for organizational benefits in these categories is much less straightforward from the direct cost savings on the previous slide. However, it is critical that you, as the RPA COE, try to quantify these savings in some manner. Otherwise, you'll miss valuable opportunities to impact your organization, and you'll also miss valuable ways in which you're contributing to your organization's productivity. So if you can't come up with a logical calculation and estimation technique, go-to comparative ratings can be used to help sort processes by impact to an organization. For example, employee satisfaction impacting processes can be rated and then sorted on a 1 to 5 scale. And so that's an alternative. If you still don't feel comfortable with comparative ratings, yes, no flags on impacting categories should be your kind of third and final way to evaluate and keep track of these impacts. So identifying automation opportunities that impact these factors really are the key to identifying opportunities to impact and improve employee productivity, which is where you should be focusing a lot of your time as the automation or RPA Center of Excellence. I'm almost done with this section, but the automation costs and the automation investment is that collection of costs required to transform a manual process to one that is fully or substantially automated. The major cost categories are right on the screen here, right? Make sure you've always captured your development costs, your licensing costs, and then your monitoring and management costs, right? How is it that you, as the RPA COE, are going to support automations as you build and deploy them? And so, luckily, generating an estimate for your costs is much more straightforward and concrete than estimating the automation benefits on the left side of this slide. However, you really should be careful to identify and properly treat true incremental costs of new automation development and allocating existing costs to automation development. That would be the only caveat I would have with identifying costs, is taking care to understand what's an incremental cost. An incremental cost should be included in your analysis, and what is an allocation of existing costs that should be excluded from your analysis. And then the very last piece on this section is the net benefit from automation, right? And so the benefits that we just detailed through here are not meant to be completely comprehensive, right? Take this as a starting point. Every business is unique. Use this automation ROI model as a framework and add or remove components to match the reality of your organization and your target business processes. But most importantly, besides the specifics on this slide, take a systematic approach to adopting automation. Build an inventory of potential automation opportunities. Evaluate these opportunities to measure where the greatest impact from automation will be felt. And then once that evaluation has been complete, start with those processes that you have identified as having the largest impact on your organization. So organizations stand to gain significant benefits from automation. And so with the proper messaging and evaluation methodology in place, employees will understand that this is for their benefit. Automation is augmenting their job, improving their productivity, right? It is not competing with them to do their role. So moving on to the third of the 4 sections that I had here. In this section, I wanted to address some key questions that organizations must plan for and answer when building out their RPA Center of Excellence. And so the following slides, I have 5 slides after this, answer a handful of questions that you should be prepared for when trying to build your RPA Center of Excellence. If you are prepared, or if you aren't prepared to answer and execute on these questions, you will likely have a difficult time scaling your automation initiatives. And so first, I wanted to talk about very briefly what the RPA COE team would look like. Second, I want to talk about how do you identify opportunities. Third, how do you manage your RPA pipeline? Second to last, how do you manage an automation project? And finally, how should you report on progress of your automation? All of these questions, and I have one slide on each of them, are important to make sure that the business that made an investment in your RPA Center of Excellence is able to see the value that you are providing back to them. So first, the RPA COE team and the project lifecycle. Wanted to show you this slide instead of just a list of roles and responsibilities, because I think it does a better job of showing responsibilities across a automation development project. Right, and the roles here, business analyst, RPA developer, solutions architect, are all very familiar roles to many of you in other projects. So just wanted to make a couple of key call outs, 3 in particular. First, I just wanted to mention the business analyst and highlight the importance of the business analyst. A good business analyst does an incredible job of making developers more efficient, right? In many organizations, developers are a very precious and valued resource. Using their time wisely by valuing the business analyst as a role that makes developers more productive is important, right? So the upfront work that a business analyst does, investments in business analysts, are going to result in much more efficient RPA developers. And so after the business analyst, wanted to mention, of course, the developer, the RPA developer in most cases. And so not to talk about what an RPA developer is, right? But what I think is a sort of unfortunate expectation of RPA developers in many organizations as a result of some RPA marketing is that an RPA developer is not a citizen developer, right? If you're looking for robust and enterprise grade automations, you're never going to get there with citizen developers. And I think this, I just said it, right? This is an unfortunate bit of marketing from RPA vendors highlighting capabilities of citizen developers to do enterprise development work. The platforms are easy to use and anyone can do it. That's true for individual task automation. But if you're looking to build out enterprise grade process automation, you're never going to get there with citizen developers. And then the final role I wanted to touch on is the role of RPA support. Organizations need to keep in mind that an automation, especially one that interacts with the user interface, is liable and likely to break. RPA support organization should be defined from the beginning as necessary to make sure you can scale your automation program. And so now the first of 4 question slides. And so answering the question, how do you identify automation opportunities, is important for relevance within your organization. You need a mechanism for soliciting input from your business partners and a collaborative, employee-centric process identification tool for employees to submit ideas for automation. Increasing employee engagement will ensure that you always have this robust automation pipeline and will ensure that you're also always relevant within your organization and are working on business problems that are top of mind of the business units that you're trying to support. The screenshot here is from UiPath's Automation Hub. They have a automation submission tool that will score automations based off of your predefined criteria as to whether it is a viable project for automation and how easy it would be to build out your automation. The next important question is, how will you manage your automation pipeline? It's important to make sure that you're always working on the most relevant automation projects. And so we talked about it a lot, right? Your pipeline should be managed using a consistent ROI model, customized to align with what is most important to your organization. So take what I shared at the beginning for your RPA ROI model and customize that and make it your own. And then use that output, use the benefits from that as your ranking criteria, how you turn your pipeline into a roadmap. Then answering this second to last question, how will you manage an automation project, is one that really needs no explanation as to why it's important, right? This is the core to what a RPA COE does. And so this is another screenshot from UiPath's Automation Hub, but any collaboration site will work that gives you the ability to leverage centralized repository for all your automation related files, access automation documentation templates like your process design document, your solution design document, and of course be able to link or identify reusable components for your automation. And so if you can do those things, you can build your own site to do this, or you could use a product that an RPA vendor has. But this type of site is key, which I'm sure you know, to drive standardization, right? Drives consistency in documentation, and it will drive consistency in development by promoting the use of reusable components that have been previously developed. And then the final question, how will you measure your COE impact? This is another slide from a UiPath Automation Hub product. You, of course, want to be able to measure and track the impact to your organization. The RPA vendors provide ways to do this, but it is a challenge for many organizations. The upfront indicative impact of an RPA ROI model gives you a snapshot in time of the potential impact in automation, right? So that evaluation model that we went through in depth in this presentation is really good at giving you, here's the potential impact you can have. However, deriving the actual impact of the execution of the automation program over time is much harder to quantify and measure on a regular basis, right? So after you've evaluated a process, you've gone ahead and built the automation for it, and now you have that running in production, tracking over time your automation's impact, making sure the organization knows the value you're contributing is a key piece of information that you'll want to be able to provide to show the value over time and continuously grow and justify your automation or RPA COE. And so that was the end of the third section. We don't really have a hope of fully answering all those questions in a 30-minute, 40-minute presentation, but I did want to use that as a way to remind you of the things that should be top of mind as you build out your RPA Center of Excellence. And if you can answer those questions, you have an RPA Center of Excellence that will be effective, and it will be appreciated and understood what it's contributing back to the business. And so this last section, this fourth section, I just wanted to go through a pilot use case. So I have 3 slides here on a particular format of an RPA use case that I think you will have success relating back to your organization. And so this is much more tactical than the 3 previous slides. But what you see on the screen here is a newly automated process for an insurer, specifically for their new policy submission. So for this insurer, and for any insurer, right, you need to provide a lot of documentation, different types of documentation that needs to be evaluated as part of a new insurance submission for insurance coverage. And so what you have on the screen here is you have a submission mailbox that receives policy documentation from an insurance broker. And then you have a collection of activities to monitor the mailbox, look at the content of the email, pull attachments, perform some type of extraction, right? All of this is related to extracting and understanding information that's in an email. And so after you've extracted everything, right, you need to go ahead and structure that data that you've extracted, and then you typically enter that information into an application, right? So we have here a very complicated 13-step mailbox monitoring RPA use case. And so that's the point of this second slide, right? So this is your process when you're looking at it on what actually needs to be done. This is the common structure of a lot of RPA use cases. You have mailbox monitoring, data extraction, data validation, perform an action, right? So shared mailboxes are a great RPA use case to look for within your organization. Ask business units where they use shared mailboxes. Ask your IT organization where they've provisioned shared mailboxes, right? And then go and understand the use of that shared mailbox and what a team is using it for. Chances are the use of that mailbox will follow the structure you see here, right? It could sound much more complicated, but it should simplify into this format of you have a bot monitoring a mailbox, you perform data extraction of either the body or attachments, you validate the data in some way, and then you perform an action, typically entering that data into an application. And so I say that, and then here are 4 use cases that follow that same exact format. And so the first format, the first row on here, ensures new policy submission. That is the complicated process that I showed 2 slides ago, right? Bot monitors a mailbox for new policy submissions, then extract information, validate the data, and perform a specific action. In that case, enter the data into an application and generate pricing estimates. 3 more use cases that follow the same exact format. We built one internally at Round Tower and Ahead for invoice processing, right? Invoice processing looks to be very much the same. Wait for invoices to arrive at an inbox, extract the attachments, validate that the invoice matches a purchase order, and then in our case, enter that information into NetSuite, but that could be any order management or accounting tool. Next one on here, employee terminations. In some cases, this follows the same format, right? Send a termination notification. The bot extracts information to understand what the employee or who the employee is. And then the bot checks applications for employee access and performs the action of revoking access. And so that's the third one on there. And then the very last one on here, manufacturer order processing. So here, Box monitors a mailbox for new orders, right? Exactly the same. Every single one of these starts with mailbox monitoring, and then in this case, extracting new order information. It came in the format of a Excel file. Bot goes to the order management system and checks customer account information for product availability to make sure that the customer isn't on a credit hold. And then the bot will go ahead and type in the order into the order management system. And so this use case, looking for shared mailboxes, is a good way, if you're just getting started, to get one of your pilot use cases to build out automation, right? In most cases, what's on here is things that a bot can do really well, right? A bot can monitor a mailbox for emails that either any email that comes in or emails that fit a certain format. It can extract data from attachments from the body, right? It can do predefined data validation techniques, and it can type information into applications. And so if you're struggling to find automation opportunities, or you're looking for easy wins to use and champion within your organization, I would suggest looking through shared mailboxes to try to mine some RPA use cases. And so that's everything I had today. I really appreciate everyone's time.
Hi, Will. That was awesome. I was looking to see if we had questions. I haven't seen anything on the chat yet. Does anyone have any questions for Will? No? Well, thank you, Will. That was absolutely marvelous, and we appreciate you. Special thanks to Round Tower Ahead, our featured sponsor for this session. Remember to complete the survey for each session by finding the link in My Agenda session descriptions. By participating in this survey, you make your voice heard and are helping shape the future of Technology First events. Thank you for taking time to fill out the survey. And now it's time for a 15-minute break. Use this time to grab a snack, visit exhibitors, and explore the event platform. There are game codes you can earn by exploring the app. Go to the Event Game tab to learn more. The game code for attending this session is RPA in all caps. We look forward to seeing you at the next session. And until then, thank you, Will, very much. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today. Thank you.
Hold on.